All right, we are live. So I want to say thank you, everyone. I would like to just ask maybe one of our volunteers to remind everyone in the chat to refresh their pages because that will, make them able to see this recording. Or not recording, it's live. Well, so thank you all for joining us. I'm Christina and I'm part of the organizing group of Earth Action Hub. I'm here with some familiar faces that I'll introduce in a minute. I just want to remind everyone that there's a chat underneath this live streaming, and you're more than welcome to post in where you're from, where you're joining in from. And if you have any questions for our speakers, also put them in the chat, and we can let the speakers know, and then we'll have a discussion together. So this is the very first conversation that I'm hosting. We have Daniel Schaffer. He is the CEO of Foundation for Environmental Education, that I'm also proud to be part of, and he is the host of Earth Action Hub. So that's very exciting for him to be here. We have Allison Gacad. Well, I actually don't know how to pronounce your last name, Allison. I just noticed now, but so please feel free to correct me if you want. Allison is from Canada and the Philippines originally, and she's here with Bhargav from India, and they're both have been part of the WIRE program through FEE. So thank you all for joining. I wanted to just have a short round of introductions where you explain a little bit about yourselves, what you do, and maybe how you are involved in climate action. And maybe Allison, do you want to start?
Sure, thanks, Christina. As Christina mentioned, my name is Allison Gacad. I have recently graduated from the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada, also known as the ancestral unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. And how I engage with climate action has first and foremost been through WIRE. I began as a climate journalist in my early high school days, and that's carried with me all throughout university, and it's taken me internationally and across the country as well. And so I've been really thankful for those opportunities. I also engage in climate action as a scientist. Currently, I'm in an agricultural biology lab where I study plant, microbe, and insect interactions and helping to build sustainable food systems.
Thank you so much, Allison. And Bhargav, do you want to go next?
Sure, Christina. Thank you very much. So, hello everyone. My name is Bhargav Patel, and I have just recently graduated from Ahmedabad University, and currently I'm at India, Gujarat. And one of my first introduction towards the environmental conversation was in my 7th standard when I worked on a project on land resources. And from that day, I got turned into that field. And when I joined my university, I started Environment Club along with my friends, which has been 3 years now. And we are a like 300 people's community, accommodating everyone till now. And recently, we also won the Best Club Award in the university as well. So, and I'm also associated with the YRE, and well, as a researcher, I also work in the area of machine learning and environmentalism, where I can target some small problems and try to solve them using my knowledge, my engineering knowledge. So yeah, that's how I associated with the environmental programs.
Thank you so much. And Daniel?
Hi, everyone. My name's Daniel. I'm first of all thrilled to be here, and thank Christina for inviting me to this session. I live in around Copenhagen, and I work as the CEO of the Foundation for Environmental Education now for about 7.5 years. And before that, I used to be a CEO of an organization called EcoOcean, which is a organization that focused on marine research and education. And before that, I was a sailor. And I always say that when I was a sailor, the sea was the most important thing for me. The most important thing in my life was the sea. But when I went through this passage, first as a captain of a research vessel, and then afterwards as the CEO of EcoOcean, I went through a metamorphosis, and suddenly I started to understand how much the sea is important to us. Not only me as the individual sailor, but to us as humans, to our planet, etc. So that was, I really came into this environmental world very late in my life, and it was an incredible passage of learning and of understanding and also being very concerned.
Thanks, Daniel. And actually, maybe diving right into kind of the talk or the conversation, I wanted to ask, like, how have you seen the environmental movement change over the past couple of generations?
You're asking me, Christina?
Yes, as the older part. I won't say old, but the older part of the team here.
Well, thank you for that, Christina. That's exactly what I needed now. I think that there's less finger pointing today, and there's better understand. There is still a lot of finger pointing, but there's a better understanding of the importance of collaboration and of involving stakeholders, even if they're not on the same side that you're representing. I think that is something that has changed. I think that in the past there was a lot of preaching and a lot of finger pointing. I think this is my impression, and that has alienated a lot of people, or it presented points of view that for some people were just not, people couldn't understand what are they talking about. And I think that there's a lot more recognition today that this is something that we need to do together if we really want to have impact. And I think that's a very positive change that I've seen in the, I would say, 20 years, almost 20 years that I've been involved in this business, in this work.
Allison, Bhargav, do you agree? Do you think is the collaboration really working well? Have you maybe examples of that?
Okay, I think whatever Daniel said is pretty true, because like we have seen that, we have experienced that as well. Like when in this past years, the way the movement has changed. Like initially, whenever there is a business ongoing, or maybe let's say industry, there was not much concern about how it's impacting the environment. But right now it has been changed, because it has been mandatory to understand the impact of that particular industry on the environment and what they can do to reduce the effects. Recently, when I was watching a video from Mr. Sundar Pichai, he said that Google will be carbon negative by 2030. Now, creating a company which is completely carbon negative at such a large level, it's something we are not even observed in past. So I think the way we are going, it's a pretty it is a pretty nice way, but I think it's required more acceleration, because there is a very short time remaining to reverse the effects of some decades.
Yeah, it's very true that we need all sectors, all generations, everyone really to take action. There's not like one single one that can carry this whole action by themselves, really. Allison, do you want to share your experience as well?
Yeah, I think definitely building on what Daniel and Bhargav have already mentioned on how essential collaboration is to the climate action movement. I think we've really gone from a shift in the scientists telling us that our CO2 is rising to 400 parts per million, and we need to reduce our carbon, to recognizing the fact that we don't just need scientists to solve climate change. We need artists, we need storytellers, we need journalists, we need everyone from all walks of life to figure out how they can integrate it as part of their personal and professional lives. I think personally, the biggest transformation I've seen is the transformation of the narrative around climate action. In originally seeing it as we need to save the trees and we need to save the environment, it's now undergone this metamorphosis, as Daniel has mentioned, even in his own personal metamorphosis, into one that involves people, and not just trees and in the environment, but also people and livelihoods, and really a definition of climate justice. In building a sustainable world, how can we ensure that even wages are fair, that people can afford to put sustainable food and healthy food on their plates? And so really, I think that it's transformed from this singular movement of being so focused on the environment as an entity, as into this movement that's looking at how we can ensure that livelihoods are sustainable, that people are sustainable, and that people are healthy as well.
And yeah, Daniel, you go.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a very good point that Allison is bringing up, but it goes both ways. So if in the past, or you can hear these voices today as well that say we should stop using fossil fuels. Okay, and of course we should stop using fossil fuels. There's no doubt about that. But if you're living in the mountains of Pennsylvania and your community is really a blue collar, relatively poor community in the Appalachians or in Pennsylvania, and you've been living off coal mining, if a solution is not brought to you and presented to you, then you're going to be dead against anything that is connected to closing your livelihood and the security that your family has. And I think that this is what I'm saying, that we need to understand the complexity of the problems that we're dealing with on all their different layers, and have a dialogue, and also present solutions to all the different, look for solutions for the different angles of the issue. Something, the other thing is, it's very easy, for example, for someone who lives in a city like Copenhagen, where it's full of public transportation and everything works perfectly, to come and say we should, stop cars. If you're living even in Sweden, in a village that doesn't have any trains, buses, or the bus comes once a day, you're going to have a very different point of view about this. And this is a dialogue which is a fair dialogue that we need to have with people. And if we're talking about fairness, that's also part of the fairness of the discussion that we have between us, and the solutions that we're looking for in order to solve the problem we're facing. And I think that from this, it's not only that I was talking about finger pointing, it was also that for many years you only heard this: no, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. But you have to provide solutions with what you're telling people. That, if you're saying to me, well, don't do this, well, what should I do? And I think that today there's many more options on the table for us to do. And also it's much more clear that has to be part of the dialogue and the conversation. And for me, that's a huge change from what we've had a long time ago to what we're dealing with today.
There's actually an interesting question in the chat already that links a little bit to what you've already discussed in terms of, this messaging of don't do this. And it's, so the question is, what are your opinions on protests as acts of activism? Do you have advice for how to talk to people who are in denial about climate change, or do not think their small actions will make a difference? Okay, so that's two big questions, but maybe the first one would be, what are your opinions on protests as an act of activism? Allison, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'd be happy to start this off. I think that protests, are also known as direct action, is essential to activism, but it's not the only component that can mobilize for systemic change. And I think the best way to illustrate this is through an example at my university, at the University of British Columbia, which committed to divestment from fossil fuels. And that was achieved through, yes, protests, through direct action, where students walked out of class. They were marching throughout our campus, all holding signs and banners and posters, like lots of energy just around the fact that, you know, when universities have billions of dollars to invest, they shouldn't be investing it in fossil fuels. But that's not the only thing that convinces universities to divest from fossil fuels. That was one part of the puzzle. And the other parts of the puzzle include being able to sit down at meetings with board of governors and explain why it's financially responsible to divest from fossil fuels, being able to talk to other professors and other students about why divestment is important and how to build it as part of the curriculum. I think that protest is necessary and essential for really drawing attention to a particular angle, a particular crisis, and a particular lens. But it is by no means, I think, the only way in order to enact efficient change.
Bhargav, I saw you nodding. Do you also have the same experience? Oh, you were muted, Bhargav.
Yeah. So yes, I agree with Allison that you know, active protest is a important part, because but in a proper way, not you know, something which hurts other. If you are protesting, once you have to, like, a complete group of people have to make sure that they are protesting for a right thing, not just morally right, but it should be right in the form of ethics as well, and it should be in a proper manner. Definitely, because India is a free country due to protest. Mahatma Gandhi started protesting against, so, and that's why we are a free country. But uh, you know, personally, like I belong to a 70-30%, 70% yes, 30% no, because sometimes you know, protest is not a perfect way to do it. There could be an alternative which should be evaluated first, and then if there is no way, let's say the people who are in power are, you know, no way ready to hear you, and you actually have completely zero resources to do things in your own way, then protest is the, you know, last act which could be used. That's my point of view.
Thank you, Daniel. Do you also have some?
Yeah, I think that protesting is a tool. It's a tool that you use to reach the, you know, to reach your target, and when it becomes when the protesting becomes the whole thing or the only thing, I think that Allison's example was very good. Then I think it's not as useful as some people might think. I think when we had the discussion in preparation for this session, I was talking about the spectrum, and that there's different types of activities that you do within your environmental, you know, within the environmental movement. And you've got some organizations, some people, it's sometimes a very personal thing, you know, some people have a certain personality, and they'll be, you know, they'll find themselves, you know, drifting towards certain types of actions that fit their personality as well. But I think that when you look at the spectrum, in order for this rainbow to be effective, you have to have the different colors of this rainbow. And the problem sometimes within the rainbow is that the different parts of it don't work together. They don't have a holistic vision on what the overall target is. And you do something and you think that everything that you're doing is the most important thing, and you're not taking into consideration other groups or other parts of the effort that are as important. And for example, if you, Christina, you and I, and both of you, Allison and Bhargav, you were part of the YRE program. I believe in the power of education. I believe in the power of education. That's another very important tool in my opinion, in order to make change. And if you only think that education works and nothing else works, then you're missing out on a lot of other powerful elements of this effort that you want to utilize in order to achieve your goals. So I'm not absolutely not against protest. I think that they're really important. I think what Allison said, that they draw attention, they rattle the cage, they create awareness of a problem, but then you have to have a whole bunch of other actions and other possibilities of things that you can do if you want that attention to have the value that you really want in the end.
Thank you. And actually, we can just dive right into another question from the audience because they're very active, it seems. There is a question. Do you think that as an individual that you can make a significant change?
May I?
Go ahead, Bhargav.
Yeah. So yeah, the answer is, I would say, clear yes, because when you start to make a change, it's an individual activity. Yes, first, initial time is pretty tough, but once you start, creating, once you start impacting, even at a smaller level, let's say you just meet with 10 people and you are discussing some idea. You initiated with the idea, you are the only one, but as you move forward, people will join you. So it will start from an individual thought, but it will be at the end, after some time, it will be a group of people who will be working in a single direction, in a common goal. And once you start getting audience, and people start listen to you and understand you, you start creating an inspiration. Like if I give an example, when I started with the environment club, believe me, first 1 year was a pretty tough. Like in the first activity, there are only 2 participants, and I recall that activity because there was a pretty disappointment that okay, only 2 participants showed up, and there were 13 core team members, and we actually did the activity as well. But when I left the club, we were having 100 participants. Actually, we had to cancel some of the audiences because we are full of seats. So this is how you start at the individual level, but as you move forward with complete trust in yourself, and with the efforts as well, not just trust, you need efforts. Things starts to from individual, it becomes a group target, and then also people start joining. But important thing is to at that very initial point, do not think that okay, I'm an individual and I cannot make a change. But once you start trying to make change, people will definitely join you, because you will start finding like-minded people. Like due to environment club, I came to know about YRE, and I'm pretty lucky to meet with the people who have a similar level of thought process. Maybe we all have a different approach, different education, but we have a common goal, and we are trying to reach there at our own level. So yeah, definitely it is significant. You will make a significant change, that's for sure.
Thank you. It also reminds me, or just of this whole process of Earth Action Hub, because it's a new project, and we have 7 people of us have really worked hard to make this work, but we have no idea like how many will show up. Well, we have 2,000 registrations, but will people come? But as you say, like it's just that, like it's a small start, and that can grow into something bigger. So that's it's important to remember that you just need to take that first step, and then like go from there one by one. I think also in the preparation to this meeting, we had a discussion around maybe you're actually doing a lot of things that are sustainable that you maybe not even aware of, or there are some communities that are already living in a sustainable way, but they don't call it that way. Daniel, do you want to reflect on that, or any of the previous topics?
Before I do, I just want to go back to the previous question, because I think Bhargav, you mentioned Gandhi before, and Gandhi is, is a fantastic example of one individual that has made, has brought freedom to his country. Okay, but Gandhi's effort wouldn't be successful. I'm not saying it wouldn't be worth, but it wouldn't have been successful if 1 million individuals or millions of individuals wouldn't have gotten up and followed him on his march, for example, on his salt walks. So some people will be there will be very few people that will be these great leaders that move mountains and or people like Greta, that as a young girl decided to, to fight a battle and then created the movement. But in the end, the movement is not a movement if the many individuals don't join the movement. And I think that that's our responsibility as the little individuals, is to accept the fact that we have a role to play in this, even if it looks sometimes small or insignificant. It is without this mass of people changing their behavior or believing in the cause, it's going to be very hard to succeed. So yes, if you're an individual, you've got a part to play in this. And sorry, but maybe we should let Allison say something, and then we can go back to the next question. I don't know.
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, I don't have much else to add. I mean, I think you both covered it. Really, when you're an individual and you decide to take that risk, and yeah, it can be scary to pursue climate action and start those conversations with people, but there really is a multiplier effect, and people notice, and soon you start attracting like-minded people, and then you end up on panels like this. So yeah, it really is beautiful when you take that first step and then suddenly you see opportunities coming before you, and as long as you keep putting in the effort and the passion to do so.
Super. And maybe another question from the audience. There is one that is, do you think getting overly emotional with issues is counterproductive in the journey to realize the goal? So it's about emotions. Like if you become very, maybe, attached to this vision, like what effect does that have? Is that, any reflections on that? Daniel, go ahead.
That's a very individual question. And some people are very emotional and other people are not. So, it's, how can you, but what I think is important is that you try and know the facts, okay? And that you try and understand the issue, and you don't, and the complexity of the issues that we're facing, and don't let your emotions hide or curtain for you the full picture. I think if your emotions are driving you to a place where you are suddenly looking at everything through a keyhole, then I think it's a bad thing. But on the other hand, if your emotions are the fire and creating the steam, then they're important in to drive you and to motivate you, etc., etc. So I think it's a very difficult question to answer, because it's very much an individual. People are just different.
Allison, Bhargav, do you have anything to add? Otherwise, there are also plenty of other questions in the chat.
So I would say, from my perspective, what I have observed, getting an emotional attachment with your goal is important to be on the track. Because when you are chasing a big dream, or maybe let's say if we talk about this climate change issue, you will face a lot of failures. Everyone have to face a lot of failure when they are starting, and if you are trying to do something big, something is not done, there will be a tons of failures. At every 1000 trial you may get one success. So to bear those 999 failures, you have to be emotionally attached, and you just not get I think emotionally attached with the goal is not the perfect word to explain this, but there should be an intrinsic motivation, like why I'm doing this. Maybe there could be extrinsic motivation like money or power. It could be anything. I'm just naming some few. But even if you remove them, what is your internal motivation that is pushing you to wake up every day and do your job? That is most important thing. And if that you have in yourself, you are already attached to your goal. Because when you're chasing a big goal, there will be a small failures, and to digest them, you require that level of attachment to your goal. It may be a counterproductive for your personal life, but I don't think it won't be a counterproductive for your goal. That's my perspective.
Thank you, Bhargav. We also only have a couple of minutes left, but I wanted to finalize with a question about what your recommendation would be for others. Like you've already started different movements in your prospective areas. Maybe what would you recommend others who are concerned about the environment to where do they start? Allison, do you have maybe a reflection on that?
Yeah, I think the first step in that journey is really internal, really reflecting on what are your values? Do you value equity and justice, maybe diversity, inclusion? Do you value biodiversity, conservation? And then from there, look for avenues to uphold those values, look for organizations, perhaps through the Earth Action Hub network, that can help you put these values into action. And I think that's a great way as well to start off on a conversation point when reaching out to other people who may not necessarily share completely the same values as you, but when you're engaging in climate action, what do you both have in common and what can you both talk about to advance climate action? I think that, in order to really participate in a movement like this, it requires a grounding in your own reflections as to what you truly care about and why you think it's important and how communities and other people can help you to achieve that.
Very true. Thank you so much, Allison. Daniel, do you have any closing remarks? Otherwise, I'll do mine.
No, I'm fine at the moment. I'm choking here, so being over emotional.
Yeah. All right. Well, so I want to say thank you so much, all three of you, for joining. Also thank you to the audience for some questions. Maybe you are inspired now to go and fill out your own personal action plan. As you know, that's part of the website. You can go and have a look. We did a small template for you. So, and again, I mean, it's really starting small and taking it step by step. So that's how we should all try and go about it. I want to also mention that the next live session that we have coming up will take place on the talks stage. And there you'll hear from Carolina Komanduli, who will speak about the forest people's powers. Don't worry, it's still have 15 minutes, half an hour. But with that, I really want to say again, thank you, Daniel, Allison, Bhargav. It was really interesting. This session is also on YouTube now and can be watched if somebody didn't catch the whole thing. But yeah, thank you again.